The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show was originally broadcast on April 13th, 2021.
Aloha and welcome Maui to Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines and Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts. I am your host, Pamela Timpop, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and today we have three exciting guests with us. We're going to talk about reopening of the shuttered venue operations. There's going to be a new grant portal that's opening up, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and PPP, those loans that businesses have really counted on during this crazy time. So people want to know when that's going to end. We're going to learn more about challenges on Molokai Island, what they're experiencing and what some of the possible solutions are, and hear from a husband and wife operation that has been taking off, High Spice. So first, I have the great pleasure to introduce a new friend of mine, someone who's been with the SBA for quite some time, and I'm getting to know him more and more. He is the new District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration's Hawaii Pacific Islands District Office. Thornton Mark Spain, but he goes by Mark. Mark's extensive experience includes over 50 years of banking, financial services, and consulting work specifically engaged in the formation of new businesses. He is the real deal when you need some business help. Mark joined the SBA in 2012 and served as the deputy director before being appointed as the district director in 2021. So, Mark, welcome, and we're so thrilled to have you in your new position.
Oh, aloha, Pamela. It's a real pleasure to be with you this morning, and I must say that my daughter and family were there on Maui on a poly last week, and of course I didn't have a chance to join them because of work, but they sure were enjoying their time on the island, and Maui, of course, is a favorite for the family. So thank you for the invite to share this morning, Pamela.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're so glad to have you with us and glad to hear that your family love being here. Of course, we cherish our island and all the islands in Hawaii. We're so blessed to live in such a beautiful state and to work in such a beautiful state, and I know that you're working hard to help our businesses. Mark, you know, one of the I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely agree.
One of the new things that's key on everybody's mind is the Shuttered Venue Operations Grant Portal. And I know you've got exciting news about when it's going to open up.
Sure do. And in fact, last week, and this is an interesting process, being from the banking career of over 35 years and 15 years helping small businesses be established, both here in Hawaii and also on the mainland. It was interesting when the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant opened last Thursday. It was opened up very quickly. It opened up just a little bit after midnight local time. And as a frank matter, the system was overwhelmed by the number of people who wanted to take it nationwide to a solution for them. So as a result of that shuttered venue being open, briefly, it was determined that the vendor called Salesforce wanted to retool and expand the bandwidth so that the actual portal will once again reopen later this week after the initial pukas that they experienced will be resolved. The whole purpose of the shuttered venue is to allow venues that have been closed because of COVID-19 are going to be given opportunities to get grants that will help them sustain and reopen their business environments both on Maui and the rest of the islands. I think the most important thing here is the grant is exactly that. It is not a loan, unlike other programs that we will talk about what SBA offers. I think that's the key, Pamela, is that we wanted to make sure that the launch, when it is reopened later this week, will be successful and handle almost any level of inquiry from across the nation.
You know, we really appreciate that because we heard that with the PPP program when it initially rolled out, right? There was such demand and the portal was getting filled up nationwide with businesses and with some of our communication challenges in Hawaii. It was hard for people to get through.
Very much so. And I think the key thing that is happening with the Shuttered Venue Grant, everything goes through the platform that's provided by Salesforce, but is handled on one nationwide access portal. Mm-hmm. In the case of PPP, after the initial launch, all of the activity for the PPP loan program, of course, was offered through multiple bank-related platforms to the host system in Washington, D.C. So it had a tendency to be more dispersed. The activity wasn't overwhelming the final portal at Washington, D.C., because the banks were doing the actual facilitation of the application. And that's the difference between a PPP loan environment when it comes to data systems as compared to the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant that we have just discussed.
Thank you, Mark. And actually, I think I need to stand corrected. I believe it was the IDLE portal.
Oh, yes.
I apologize. I believe it was the IDLE portal. I said PPP, but you're right. PPP was very diverse, and it was the original IDLE portal.
That's right.
Yeah, that was that, and that's been fixed too. And I know we're still we're going to talk a little bit more about other things that are still available, which includes that. Tell us about the scope of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund for local food vendors, as well as the restaurants and the people that people normally think of. Who else can it apply to as well?
That is a good question, and I think the most important factor, the difference between the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and the Restaurant Revitalization is one thing. In the grant programs, typically you have to have a registration in sam.gov, which most people on the contracting side are familiar with, but it's the way the federal government pays those who are working within the system. Hence, the grants would be dispersed based upon the delivery system of that platform. The good news about the Restaurant Revitalization, it is not subject to the same statute, and as a result, the sam.gov registration will not be required. The other compare and contrast is this. The shuttered venue eligibility is somewhat narrow. In fact, in some cases, people who are working more or less in the supply of labor or the supply of technical support have been somewhat impacted by not being able to be eligible. That's being resolved in the delayed rollout now of the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. The restaurant is much different. It is so broad. It covers everything from tap rooms to food trucks to people on the food courts that you would see in whether it be Kahului or Lahaina. Anything that involves the delivery of food is going to be covered. I'll give you one additional example. If we have a bowling alley, it's the purpose, of course, of sport. But if you have a food and beverage service in a bowling alley and have 33% of the revenue from that overall operation comes from food and beverage, they're eligible too. So the Restaurant Revitalization is going to be a very broad-based $28.6 billion funded program that will be open on or around the end of April. And I will tell you this, from the experience we had with the Shuttered Venue opening last week, we are applying several technical changes that includes a platform vendor that will be the same vendor as what we have used for PPP. So the experience of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, it will be very, very open to all comers to serve food in any form or fashion. And the eligibility requirements can be further seen after April 19th on the SBA.gov website, Pamela.
Thank you so much for that, Mark, because that's the key thing, right? Everybody needs to remember, where do you go? We're all counting down and eager to be, when that portal opens up. I know we all want to be the first one in because there's such a great need. And it's so great that the federal government has really recognized the need. The programs that we have seen through COVID times are just night and day from, just there was no real assistance during the Great Recession for small businesses. And to see what we've learned from that and done with it is remarkable.
That is very true, and I think one of the things that local legislator and state government leadership, as well as Mayor Victorino of Maui, for example, the American Rescue Plan that was passed by President Biden back in the middle of March will have earmarked dollars coming to the state as well as county governments. And I think it'll be very important that outside of the PPP and the IDLE and the Restaurant Revitalization and Shuttered Venue, there are dollars there that can also be helpful to small businesses in the state. This is where local advocates such as yourself, Pamela, can check in with the county government and make sure that those combined funds that have been substantial for the state of Hawaii at the local level are also earmarked for small businesses where appropriate. So it can be a very healthy next 2 months as we look at how all of the American Rescue Plan funds at the state and local level are going to be utilized with wisdom and also efficiency. Thank you, Pamela.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I appreciate you mentioning our mayor. When COVID hit, he came to us right away and said, what can we do to help? And we knew small businesses were going to really have some big challenges. Many had come off a great 2019. They were reinvesting in their business, expecting 2020 was going to be spectacular. And they really saw tremendous devastation when they had to shut down. So we created the micro business loan program in partnership with the county, and it was through our mayor's leadership that he jumped in early to say, what are we going to do in the interim? Well, we know the federal government's working on this. And it was a great success, and it was 0% interest loans. Some of the loans went out 5 to 7 years, and so it's been a tremendous help. And then later, when there was additional CARES Act funding, the county has been working to relieve some of those loans where people could submit qualified expenses. So it was a little bit of a twist because the original money was county. So for the relief, we had to follow the CARES Act guidelines for expenses. So not everything could be forgiven based on the way people needed to spend the money. And, this wasn't an expected thing. It was actually a bonus, a great gift that was offered. So the mayor has been very good at looking at how he disperses the money countywide and helps as many businesses as possible. And
that's very true, Pamela. And I think the thing that is most notable in the original CARES Act of April of last year, obviously sometimes inside the Beltway, Washington regulators made the delivery of systems, shall we say, more rigid. And
yes.
As we've gone along, the subsequent legislation was June 5th of 2020, and then the updated act in 12/27/20, last signed by President Trump, and then, of course, President Biden has now continued that trend. We're finding that the rigidity in the regulatory language has been really, shall we say, more broad and not so intensively difficult to understand. And that will continue, and hopefully a trend that will be more, shall we say, user-friendly for those businesses who have been benefited by the programs as they passed throughout the last 12 months.
Yes, thank you. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I know you're on the forefront of that. You and I have had many discussions, and I know that you looking at ways to be more user-friendly is so important to you. On that note, Mark, we're seeing PPP, and we've had the extension. So the big question is, how much time do people have before PPP ends?
That's a good question. And I think the most important thing to remember is that Congress has added a nominal amount of money for the program. It will expire on 5/31, May 31st, a little bit less than, say, 48 days from now. And I think the important thing about PPP is that it will be, I think, more and more utilized for the payroll cost as opposed to non-payroll costs. We've had some instances on the second draw of the PPP where some of the vendors or some of the borrowers have used it for up to 80% of their payroll costs because
Yes.
they're anticipating reopening or expanding their occupancy. Each of the islands, Maui included, have had limitations on the occupancy of a given food facility, for example, or if it's in a retail environment. Those restrictions, of course, have meant that payroll has to be the center focus of PPP. I have had one or two relationships on Oahu, for example, where a given restaurant used all their money for furniture and fixture rehab and did not use anything for payroll. So obviously their loan will not be forgiven. It's still a very reasonable loan, and the restaurant, frankly, at this point said, okay, we will go ahead and take the 1% interest rate for 5 years. So we do encourage that the PPP draw number 2, when it is used, really focus on its intended purpose, which is payroll. And I think as we go into the month of May, the EIDL loan will also, again, be available for more use in 2 reasons. The EIDL loan is going to have its maximum increase to $500,000 from the 150,000 that was originally capped last year. And that's good news. If you have a borrower in the audience that has been capped at 150,000, they will see an email come to them from the SBA facility in Sacramento or in Fresno, California, that will tell them that their loan will be increased to the eligible amount they should have had at the beginning. So that's sort of a quick, summary of EIDL, but PPP, I think, will become less used as we go toward the end of May, but I think it'll be fully available till the end of May, but the EIDL loan will start taking prominence once again.
That's good to know, and I really appreciate you mentioning that, people should be checking their emails. I've talked to many businesses many times who, there's so much that's going on in their world that they're really missing key emails like that when they're not familiar with that the program's going to reach out to them in that way or didn't even know that it was coming. And so it's great to know that there are you're telling people, look, they're going to reach out to you directly, so be checking your email. So if you've gotten an EIDL loan, I want to remind everybody, keep looking for that email from the SBA and periodically do a little search. Just go in your inbox and search every once in a while and see.
That's very true. Don't forget to check the spam. And I think there's two activities where emails are being generated. If the targeted advance, for example, last year the advance was originally promised at $10,000, then the administrator changed it to $1,000 per employee. Many of our smaller businesses got maybe $2,000 to $3,000 or as little as $1,000. If you are that type of recipient, now at targeted advance, if you live in low or moderate income census tract as defined by the IRS, then you're going to receive the difference between what you did receive from the original EIDL advance to the total of $10,000. So if you receive $1,000, for example, and you live in a low and moderate income, hence the term targeted, you will receive the balance of $9,000, and that'll be directly done by SBA, no action on your part. Same with the loans that were capped at $150. You have to take no action on that. It'll come to you, and then you have the reconsidered amount at a higher level than the $150,000. Thank you, Pamela. I know I wanted to keep well aware of my time. Hopefully I'm doing okay.
You are doing great. Actually, we have a couple more minutes, so I wanted to ask you another question, Mark. I know you
Sure.
have a new SBA Navigator program, and I call it the SBA is in town. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, no problem. What we have done here in Hawaii, in fact, on this particular program, I'll be on the lead for our 4 states. It comprises Region 9, and that is California, Nevada, Hawaii, of course, and Arizona. And on that program, we're going to be reaching out to nonprofit relationships beyond our typical funded partners. Those funded partners, just to be brief, is the SBDC there, of course, on Maui. Wayne Wong holds court down in Kihei. Then you have the Veterans Business Outreach Center in Honolulu, along with the Women's Business Center in Honolulu as well. And then you have SCORE, of course, on Maui as well as on Oahu. So those 4 have been the typically funded resource partners. The Community Navigator program now is going to give us the opportunity to go out and reach to nonprofits or non-government organizations to spread the detailed support. In other words, how will that work? It's going to be like a hub and spoke approach. The hub will be 5 or 6 primary nonprofits outside of the resource partners I named, and then many of the spokes will be, let's say, specifically for HANA. It could be also specific to Kihei. It has the ability to really reach into the community because more resource relationships, I call them community partners, will be available to be compensated for their outreach to the underserved community. So the Community Navigator program, you'll start seeing that come aboard probably in the early part of May. Thanks for the question, Pamela.
Oh, you're very welcome, Mark. Well, Mark, you, as always, are a delight to talk to and a wealth of information. Thank you so much for joining us today and providing all this helpful information about the Small Business Administration. We are thrilled to have you as our district director at the helm and excited about the new programs you're looking to roll out and how you're going to be more available. SBA has always been in town. I don't want to make it sound like they're not here. The SBA has always been in town throughout our state and throughout Hawaii, but you're looking to have more boots on the ground and broader connections, and we are so excited to work with you and serve as we can.
Well, that's a thank you for that, Pamela. And also just recognize we call this outreach collectively Operation Footprint because we want to be more present. You and I will see each other on Maui sometime soon. And thank you again for the invitation to share.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're looking forward to it. Thanks, Mark. Have a beautiful day.
Hey, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Aloha. Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal. Oh, thank you, everybody. We're back. I'm Pamela Timpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and I get to welcome my great friend and president of the Molokai Chamber of Commerce with us this morning, Rob Stephenson. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning, Pam. I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Maui. How's the weather in Molokai?
It's beautiful over here. It was sunny, and we just had a nice little morning shower pass through our home over here, and so have that nice rain to refresh the morning.
Don't you? I love morning showers to start your day. It's just great. And the smells and everything's beautiful, and just reminds you that you're blessed, and which we always say here in Hawaii when we get our little rain spouts. So so glad to have you with us. I'm glad that you've got a great start to your day, and things are shaping up beautiful here. But I know you're welcome. I know, though, we've all had some challenges going through COVID, but, Molokai has really seen some very challenging times. Can you share a little bit about what's been going on the island? And there's some solutions that have come to bear, and let's talk a little bit about solutions to come.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to share some of our story. And we also want to say thank you to our business community. We want to say thank you to Representative Linda Coit, Mayor Victorino's office, Senator English for their leadership during this time. They were really instrumental in helping us get many of our aid programs off the ground. And just to give a quick recap of some of the things that happened. So when we first had our first cases, we were able to work with the mayor's office and Representative DeCoit to sanitize many of our local businesses, and we were able to reach virtually the entire business community inside and out. And through our contacts, we were able to, on a Sunday, get in touch with all of the banks so we could go inside and sanitize them. We were able to reach the post offices, the businesses throughout town, the East End, up in Ho'olehua, we did the post office. And all in all, we were able to sanitize over 60 businesses. And Mayor Victorino's administration was the one who took care of the costs for that sanitizing project, which is very important to keep our community safe. Because we're a small community. We only have 2 gas stations, so everybody on the island shares, I believe, 12 gas pumps. Wow. And there's the main post office, so everybody uses the same door handle at the post office. So it was really important that we were able to do that from the beginning. And one of the first efforts through the Support Molokai initiative that was the collaboration between the Molokai Chamber, the Homestead Farmers Alliance, Representative Linda Coit, the Molokai Farm Bureau, Molokai Veterans Caring for Veterans, the Molokai Community Federal Credit Union, Kuala Pu Store, the Bayer Molokai, and many others, some private donations. We were able to purchase fresh produce from Maui, which is flown in at no charge by Mokulele Airlines in Makani Kai. And that was instrumental in getting food to our local families that had some challenges getting to the grocery stores. Mm-hmm. And what this did is this showed a partnership between the business community, both on island and off island, right, that helped make it all possible. And I wanted to make a note that all of this was done with private funding, private funding that came from our business community. And we saw the private sector was able to move in a really rapid way during this crisis. And it's a testament to the dedication of our business community to our entire island. And this rally really led the charge to set the tone for the future efforts. And the Mayor Victorino and his administration, they held several food distribution events. And that was at a time when our stores were closed due to the COVID infections, and some of them were operating under very tight restrictions. So Molokai only has 3 grocery stores, 1 mini mart, and a neighborhood store on the East End. So our options were limited to feed our families. One of the unintended consequences we were trying to avoid is when you do these type of food distributions, it takes the revenue away from our local grocery stores. Mm-hmm. So through the mayor's leadership and our former council member, Stacy Crivello, was very instrumental in getting the mayor's administration to purchase food and vouchers from our local businesses so we could keep that money circulating in our local economy. So you can see in a small economy, it's really important to keep that money here so we could keep our families working so they can continue to pay their bills and serve the needs of our community.
You know, I'm so glad you said that because Molokai is so resilient. I mean, you're known for being such a resilient island, but to find ways to make sure that you've got that loop and that the money, you're maximizing all of the opportunities to support people, bring in new partners, bring in, I appreciate that you said too that it was private funds that did this, everybody coming together to make it happen. But then you continue to look at, all right, what's going on in this loop and how do we keep people working and how do we maximize the dollars coming in and the rotation of that? I think that's brilliant.
Well, it really was, and that is a true testament to our leadership, the leadership of the mayor's office and Stacy Crivello, our former council member, who is his administrative assistant. They really did a great job with that. So, what you asked about some of the challenges that we've had. One of the biggest ones was being hit hard by the Young Brothers shipping increase, mm-hmm. and that happened at the same time during COVID, but it was largely as a result of COVID because their cargo volumes decreased statewide, and in order to continue their operations and stay in business, they had to increase their rates. And although we've adjusted to it largely, it's really hard to swallow during these desperate times. It couldn't have come at a more unopportune time. And although we've seen some surges lately from new money coming in from real estate sales and construction, our island is hurting from the lack of tourism. Typically, we don't have the same type of same levels of tourism that you folks have on Maui mm-hmm. and even statewide, but the little we do have does bring in new money. And the decrease in tourism has hurt us. It's put a dent in our economy for sure. And as a result of the pandemic, we also lost service from 2 of our airlines, Molokai Airlines and Ohana Airlines. And that was as a result of a lack of passenger travel right. back and forth from tourism. And so all of those things put together caused some challenges. The remaining airline, Mokulele Airline, they've really stepped up and filled that gap. But it's come at a cost. Things are it's a little bit more expensive to fly now. And we're finding that flights are somewhat limited because we're limited to a 9-passenger airplane. Mm-hmm. And one of the other challenges we've seen because of the travel restrictions is people here on Molokai have to travel off island for business meetings and for medical appointments and all types of personal and business needs. And so if you're away for more than 24 hours, you'd have to go through the extra expense and time of getting a negative COVID test in order to actually travel back home to Molokai. So it has been we have seen some challenges with traveling because we don't have many of the services here on Molokai that our neighbor islands enjoy.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're sharing this because it's really important for all of us to understand. We live our day-to-day lives and we know what's going on here in Maui. And even here in Maui, we used to say the trickle-down effect from the visitor industry was about 75%. And today we'd say, no, it's really probably over 90%. And there's still no real good data on that. But then you look at what's happening on Molokai and again, like you say, the systems that are in place and what resources you have, you're maximizing, but when people have to go off for healthcare needs, there's challenges there, and that's one of the reasons I know our mayor has said, well, we keep looking at the statewide travels program, and we want to have a consistent policy. The uniqueness of Maui County is making us say we have to be looked at differently for those reasons.
And the mayor did a really good job in that, allowing people to travel back and forth between Molokai and Lanai and Maui, because we're all part of the same county. So many of the people who have to travel for business or other personal needs started traveling back and forth to Maui because they could avoid the travel restrictions if you're going to Oahu or one of our other neighbor islands.
Yeah. So I know I'm glad to hear that was at least a great help. I know that there's still issues, and sometimes the level of care requires that maybe they need to go over to Oahu. So you're still dealing with those challenges. And, I've been feeling for you because you and I have talked about Young Brothers before. It was a very challenging time and a desperate situation because if they didn't get the increase, they were talking about discontinuing service. So that's been a huge challenge for you.
It has been a challenge, but I would like to say Young Brothers has done a really good job of keeping the service consistent. And although no one likes to see the fee increases, we're very grateful for Young Brothers because they are the lifeline for our community. Virtually everything that we purchase here comes in through Young Brothers. If you buy it at the grocery store or the hardware store, if you drive it, if you put it in your car, if basically everything that you purchase comes here through Young Brothers. And so, although the prices may be quite a bit higher than we would like, we're still better off having them than if they were to go out of operation because we have we have very few other options. Air freight is the only other option, and that has size limitations and can be very costly.
Yeah, absolutely. And they committed to doing that, too. I mean, in their proposal, they did say, and they knew that there was desires to increase different types of services and customer service. So I'm glad to hear that they've consistently done that and that they're providing that stable service. And again, this is what I love about Molokai is people always talk about, well, when you've got lemons, you make lemonade. And you folks are great at turning some challenges into new opportunities. What kinds of things are you folks looking at for the future? What are some of the plans that will help the island recover? And what are some of the ways that people can help?
Well, I'll tell you some of the solutions that our businesses have found, and I'm glad that you had Mark on from the Small Business Administration because many of the programs that they have out there have helped our Molokai businesses. And getting the PPP money and having it forgiven, it's been a huge boost in the arm for our businesses, and many of them wouldn't have made it through without it. Yeah. And also, we've been tapping into the resources of the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, the Maui Chamber, the Molokai Chamber, and everyone on all levels. We were working with programs to try to help our businesses, to keep them in business, not only to serve the needs of the customers, but to keep people employed so those employees could continue to care for their families and pay their bills. A big help that we had was the unemployment benefits that were given to our traditional employees, along with the new group of employees, which are self-employed or the gig workers. Right. That was able to help many people get through the pandemic to continue to pay their bills. The Hawaii restaurant card that was given out to people who were receiving unemployment benefits was a huge help over here on Molokai. It actually inoculated several thousands of dollars into our restaurants who, at times, you could go into a restaurant here and there were no customers. They would stay open because they wanted to serve the community, but at the times where there were restrictions or people were afraid to go out, there's very little activity. And during those times, many of our restaurants, you talk about some of the solutions, people have had to reinvent themselves. They've had to pivot.
Yes.
Several of our restaurants, they started selling family meals. So instead of a family going out to dine, they would package a complete family meal for a reasonable price. You could order, come in and pick up, and take it back to your families. Delivery services from the drugstore, from some of our other retailers, curbside pickup, all of these new types of things, they may have been a challenge initially, but in some ways they've helped businesses become more efficient and open up new ways of doing business and new markets for them.
That's really what we found here as well. there was just this moment of devastation the first few months. Our role changed at the chamber. We were counseling people and trying to help and looking at business plans. And, we always say, make sure you've got a plan. So it doesn't mean the plan won't change in times like this, but it allows you to know where you plan on looking at things and then to be thinking strategically as we start creating new alliances. And what we found statewide is those who were able to pivot and do things like you mentioned, doing the family meals, and creating new ways of delivering their service, or creating alliances, pairing up with some Uber people to deliver the meals, and extending here on Maui, extending restaurant areas when they were able to reopen up to leverage space so that when they were cut back to the 30%, they had more space available. And, all these things have been a constant moving target throughout all of this. And, it's nice to know that Molokai is standing strong and finding new ways of doing things. And I agree, it's going to benefit us in the future because now it's sort of been a wake-up call of new ways to pivot, out of the box thinking, seeing more people go online. And as you know, we at the Maui Chamber have been working for years to have the state recognize gig economy workers, independent contractors. And the federal government this year did, and provided support for them in these crazy times as well. And that's been such a blessing. And you have so many amazing musicians on Molokai as well. I'm sure that was helpful to many in that industry and others.
Yeah, it really was. And recognizing that individuals and sole proprietors, they're businesses too. They're just a one-person business. And I think that recognition that you've been working so hard to get, and the recognition from the federal government was really a big help to people who otherwise might not have been able to receive that help. And you asked for some of the future. We don't know what the future holds, but I think what's happening now is we know that at some point these the loan programs, the government assistance, the unemployment things, they're going to stop, or they're going to slow down very significantly. One of the things that we're talking with our business is make sure that right now you're trying to streamline your processes as much as possible to bring your costs down and become as efficient as you can, but also save money, because there may be a time in the not so distant future where the economy is not as robust as it is because many of those assistance programs have come to an end. So whatever our businesses can do to streamline, to save money, is only going to benefit them in the future.
I agree. I think that's excellent advice. Rob, we're so glad that you joined us today. I miss you, my friend. I don't get to see you as much as I used to, but you're a tremendous resource for the island of Molokai, and I know you're always in it to help businesses as much as you possibly can.
Well, thank you, Pam, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here, and miss spending time with you as well. You are a dedicated person you've dedicated your life to the business community, not just Maui Island, but Maui County, and even working with the statewide chambers of commerce. So I admire all the work that you do. I have tremendous respect for you as a colleague and also as a friend, and wish you and the Maui businesses all the best, and you and your family all the best as well.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Right back at you. And if we can ever do anything to help, we're a phone call away.
And likewise.
Thanks
so much, Pam.
You bet, Rob. Thank you so much. Have a great day. All right. Well, it is always great to talk to my friend Rob. And I want to spend this time, spend a quick moment here to tell you a little bit about Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts, which is one of our sponsors of this great program. Sherry is a renowned watercolorist and artist and offers an array of bright and beautiful art and gifts for every occasion. She also has a line of amazing shirts, which we call Sherry Shirts. So we encourage you to visit her gallery and gifts in historic Makawao town. So we want to say thank you to Sherry and to Mokulele Airlines for sponsoring this program. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Juston Orr of High Spice. Juston and his wife Katie have spent years gardening and learning that they had a knack for growing peppers. I can't wait to hear more about that. And out of that, High Spice was born. Good morning, and aloha, Juston.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. So glad to have you on.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting us.
You bet. Well, you guys have been doing phenomenally as a new business startup. So tell me a little bit about your story. And I want to hear about what I don't know a lot of gardeners, but what led you to focus on growing peppers?
Well, like you briefly mentioned, we started growing a backyard garden when we first started dating 15 years ago. And we realized that peppers were one thing that we couldn't kill. So there was hope from the beginning. And it has exploded from there. Now we work with a handful of really awesome farmers on Maui and kind of work side by side with them so they can grow the quantities that we need to meet the demand that we've been blessed with having over these last 5 years. And without their help, we wouldn't be able to keep up. So.
Now, tell me about the farmers that you're working with. Are they in a particular region? Do peppers grow all across the island, or how did you build these relationships?
Yeah, we started out meeting farmers up at the Upcountry Farmers Market. We still participate in that every Saturday from 7 to 11 a.m. It's up there by the Longs up there in Pukalani and Kulamalu. And we met all the farmers there at the vendors, so we got to talk to them in person, face to face. And some of them were growing peppers. A lot of them had never grown peppers, but they grew other vegetables very, very well. And so we've just kind of worked with them slowly to build their confidence in growing the types of peppers that we use. We use 6 different chili peppers in all the different various sauces that we make. So we needed some variety, and we needed a variety of farmers to help us with that. So all our eggs weren't in one basket.
Yeah. And are you still growing peppers as well?
We do for fun. We try out new flavors in our backyard. Of course, we definitely have some Hawaiian chili plants in the backyard. We love cooking with those. One pepper in a saute pan is usually just enough to kick up a dish. But we grow new varieties, too, just to see if it's a flavor of a pepper that we like, because we're always coming out with new flavors. So we definitely have our backyard garden, but it's nowhere near the capacity that we need to keep up as far as the business is concerned.
So tell me, Juston, with COVID and all that's been going on, how have you folks been faring during this time?
Obviously in the beginning everyone was freaked out and scared, and all the uncertainty that was going on worldwide and the country, and specifically our island. Nobody was certain about anything. The only thing we knew we could predict was that our hotels and local businesses were probably going to shut down. Mm-hmm. So we knew we were going to have to rely on some other form of income. And thankfully we have an e-commerce site at our website, highspice.com. And we leaned into that really hard. We took all the money that we might have spent on advertising or promotional material, and we put it all into online ads for like Instagram, Facebook, Google, all that kind of techie stuff.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it boosted our online sales enough to let us pay bills. So thankfully, we didn't have to close down during the pandemic. We just shifted all of our business to online. The other thing that we really loved was it was a Facebook group. I'm not sure how it got started. It was Kama'aina Market. I think it was a county project.
It was. Uh-huh.
And Kama'aina Market was huge, and we really promoted with them on Facebook. So we gave locals. We kind of bit the bullet on shipping costs and gave them a discount to get the cost of the hot sauces delivered directly to them, as if they would go up to the farmer's market and buy it from us direct. Because most of the outlets that sell it direct weren't available to buy it from. So
right.
We took a small hit in order to make sure they could still get it, and that helped us also get income from local supporters as well.
I'm so glad to hear that because we love to hear how different programs have been benefiting companies. And Come Aina First was a great program to support all small businesses across Maui County. If you're not familiar with it, it was a project of the County Office of Economic Development. And it has been a tremendous resource and help to many businesses. So I'm excited to hear how you used it. And I love that you looked at different. Not only did you leverage the service, but you also looked at what you could do internally to help local folks get your product and save some money so that they could continue to spend and support local businesses. But they also got an added benefit out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked in a number of local businesses in almost 20 years I've lived here, and the ones that have thrived and the ones that might not have thrived as much are the ones that have always supported their local clientele first.
Right.
And looked at a tourist client as an added bonus. But when the tough times hit, if you aren't getting support from your local supporters, you aren't going to stand the test of time. So we knew that we had to make sure we had an outlet to make sure we had continued local support on our products. So the Come Aina First was a huge platform to allow us to keep maintaining that.
I think that's amazing. Well, and we first met you through the Made in Maui County Festival, which we're hoping to do live this year. We don't know. We did it virtually last year, and in the best case scenario, we would do a hybrid, have live and online, and if we're not able to do live because we're still at a point where a crowd of 10,000 people doesn't really work for the health and safety of our community, then we're going to go virtual again. But you've been an award-winning vendor for us through the Made in Maui County Festival.
Yeah, something we're doing is striking a chord as far as the design elements of the judging process. So we're very thankful for that. It's something we take a lot of pride in. Attention that we pay a lot of attention to the detail as far as how our product's marketed, and
yes,
it's always a feel good moment when you get an award like that. So we're definitely proud of that.
Well, we're very proud of you, and I think that's so important that you understand your brand, you understand how you're sharing that brand and communicating what's behind it, and like you said today, supporting local and taking care of your local customers is first and foremost on your mind, which is awesome. Tell us where we can find, I know you mentioned the Upcountry Farmers Market. Where else can people find your great products?
Yeah, if you have a chance, the Upcountry Market's awesome. That's where you can come hang out with us face-to-face and try the products in person, see if you even like it. But our website is the best place to go, www.highspice.com. That's HI for Hawaii. And it has a comprehensive list of all our retail locations, so we kind of give them a little shout-out, too, to draw people to their businesses, and we link their websites. So under retailers, you can go and click. We have all the ABC stores on island, on Maui, and then we've got a great relationship with Foodland, so all the local Foodland grocery stores, and even Oahu and Kauai, we started working with them to purchase it there. Mana Foods, Down to Earth, a whole bunch of other great stores. Maui Tropical Plantation's opening back up, and they carry it as well. It's always a fun place to go purchase it and then go walk around the garden.
It is such a beautiful place. Aren't we glad they're opening back up? They have been missed. They have really been missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us we've got a little bit of time. Tell us actually Gary, my great technician here is saying actually we have a couple minutes. So Juston, tell me a little bit about the line of products and the different flavors or spices you have.
Yeah, so we have a large variety of sauces, and our goal is to have a locally sourced product first. So all of our peppers and the fruits and the vegetables that we use in our hot sauces are all grown here in Hawaii, and a large portion of those just here in Maui. And that's our goal. There's some ingredients like the vinegar and the garlic aren't grown here, so we have to use a mainland option. But
sure.
we're trying to support a local first option, business model. And then we have flavors from super mild to super duper duper hot and everything in between. So we convert a lot of people who always claim that they don't like hot sauce. And my wife was one of those people until I started making some milder versions to where she even became a believer. And so we have fun flavors like we have some ones coming back in stock. We have a upcountry guava. We pair that with papaya and Hawaiian chilies. That one's always a crowd pleaser. It's nice and sweet and tart. And we have some that are just chili flavored, like our Hobra, which is our hottest sauce.
Does that have one of those ratings? I forget what they call the heat level
yeah,
rating.
So everyone always asks that. It's called a Scoville rating.
Ah, okay.
And that is an industry term used to rate dried chili powder. So once it's in liquid form, that rating really doesn't mean much. So for us, we have to compare it as a relative term because everyone watches the show Hot Ones, and everyone wants to know, one, when are we going to be on Hot Ones, and two, where would our sauces be on Hot Ones? So we have to give them a relative, like this one would probably be number 6 out of 10, because they know the show, they know how hot those ones claim to be. So we have to kind of help them out and give them a little bit of direction.
Well, it sounds. I'm now getting this thing. We're going to have to wrap up in just a second, but it sounds like we can all help because we can write in to Hot Ones and we can recommend high spice. Absolutely. I think we should. We'd love to see you featured on the show. I've been watching some of these other shows where you've got celebrities tasting super super hot things, and basically it's like just about a measurement of time as to when somebody's going to get sick. But great to know that, yes, it's interesting watching, and yet we're all glued to the set when it happens. I don't know why. But I just love that you've been on and able to share with us. I think it's phenomenal that you said you've converted your wife. So glad to know about all your wonderful products, and thank you, Juston, for joining us. That's our time today. We're going to have to end very quickly. This is our Business Matters program, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by Mokulele Airlines and Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts. I'm Pamela Tumpop, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing you blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day. Aloha.